There are fewer than 30 men in the world qualified to drive Formula One. A mere half dozen, perhaps, to win. At this moment, I'm inclined to think you're not one of them.
No, you want to. Keep up the good work, Stephen, and there you have it. There you go.
Hello, this is Desiree for F1weekly.com. I'm your in-depth correspondent.
Let's go. Qualifying, Steve.
Welcome to F1weekly.com. My name is Clark Rogers. I'm the host of the program. I'll be joined by Nasser Hamid, my co-host. This is podcast number 797, July 22nd, 2019. Nasser?
Thank you, sir. I say greetings and legal regards. Welcome to the F. Lee Bailey edition of F1 Weekly Podcast. Trouble in Paradise, Beavis versus Butthead. We shall explain.
Thank you, Nasser. On today's program, Bottas says no to psychotherapy. F2 much harder than Formula One, says Norris. Kevin Harvick holds off Denny Hamlin at New Hampshire. And we have some Swiss chocolate in the goodie bag. And we need your contributions to keep this program on the air. Just click on the Support F1 Weekly tab on the front page. You know you want to. Anyone who donates $50 or more gets a free F1 Weekly coffee cup and a sticker. Nas, welcome to the studio. How are you?
Man, I'm just waiting. Tell me more about the great race in New Hampshire.
So exciting, so absolutely wonderful. And of course, we all remember last year, Kevin Harvick had to put a little fruit on the frop to win that race. And this year, man, he did it all on his own. Machismo.
No, you don't say machismo for NASCAR. You say ahahoo.
Boogity. Let's
go F1 racing, baby.
Thank you, Nas. Keep up the good work. So what's new in your neck of the woods? And this Swiss chocolate sounds very intriguing.
Yes, absolutely. And what a week we had with legal issues in Formula One. As they say in a song from Elton John, what do I do when lightning strikes me? Well, lightning has struck Mr. ZZ Top of motor racing. The great Williams Story chapter is over at Rich Energy, and the company has even changed its name to Lightning Volt. Interesting. Now, this sponsorship saga will go down in the annals of Formula One in the same way as Moneytron and Essex Petroleum. And William Story's time in Formula One did not even last one full season. But he made quite an impact, I have to say. I've been reading about this situation, and I'm no expert on it for sure, but the millionaires he was representing have a colorful background, which I won't get into because this is a family show. And apparently he himself made money by flipping a farm in Zimbabwe. Can you imagine William's story with the locals in Zimbabwe?
I could.
Yes. And Miss Clara Peller used to ask, where's the beef? Pretty soon Mr. Gene Haas will be asking, where's the money? Any thoughts on this bizarre saga?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. This is exactly what we need. More ridiculousness in Formula One. Well, Haas, they got a little gullible. Rich Energy, Red Bull, they thought they could actually compete. Laughs, and more laughs.
Yes, and let's see if we will see Lightning Volt on the car in Germany. This is, I think this company will be pretty much out of business pretty soon. That's what I think. Have you ever seen a can of Rich Energy at Costco or Bevmo or any of those fine retailers in Cali?
I've never seen one ever.
Yeah, same here. And this morning I get up and I just could not believe big headline, Danny Ricciardo being sued by his advisor. And that's what I call Beavis versus Butthead. Danny Ricciardo has been hit with a £10 million claim from his ex-advisor, Mr. Glenn Beavis. According to his claim, he started negotiations with Renault for and on behalf of Mr. Ricciardo in 2017, and has been advising Danny Boy before that also. Ricciardo terminated his contract with Mr. Beavis earlier this year, and this has shades of what happened between Elio Castroneves and Emerson Fittipaldi, which led to a showdown with IRS. How do you think this thing will pan out? Will it go in Daniel's favor, or does he have to pay money to his ex-advisor?
No, I think Daniel will win. The biggest problem is if your last name is Beavis, you're in a heap of trouble.
You can't be too much of a butthead with the Beavis. Now, K-Mag also was sued by his ex-manager, a lady, because he terminated her contract and she wanted money, and she won the case. And if you remember, as big of a fan, as big of a fan of NASCAR you are you a closet IndyCar fan also? Because you hardly ever follow IndyCar racing.
Oh, man, was it exciting.
The Iowa race?
Are you kidding me? We're talking Iowa, corn, potatoes.
That's Idaho.
I was close. Did you look at the F1weekly.com front page?
No, I missed that. What did I miss, sir? I'm sorry.
Well, it's there.
Okay, I'll check it out. And some years ago, Izod Clothing Company was IndyCar Series sponsor, and shortly after the sponsorship was activated, the company that brokered the deal filed a lawsuit against IndyCar saying, "Show me the money." And these are $1 million deals, okay? Now let's talk about a legal case involving billionaire. This is beautiful. This is one billionaire going against another billionaire. Uralkali is a Russian potash company headed by Dmitry Mazepin. He is taking legal action against the administrators of Force India, claiming that his bid was higher than Lawrence Stroll's consortium, and this trial will take place towards the end of next year. Talk about legal logjam. Comrade Mazepin has learned something from Lawrence, though. His son Nikita is doing private testing in an old Mercedes F1 car, and not surprisingly, he posted the fastest time in Barcelona when he drove the current spec Mercedes, which means the host of the longest-running F1 podcast may be right when he declared Lewis is just lucky. I think you should send him a CD, order a CD for him from Amazon.com, and say greetings from Nando, and include the CD from Rod Stewart. Some guys have all the luck, and I think we will see more of this luck at Hockenheimring this weekend.
I believe you're right. He is the luckiest man on earth.
Yes, that's the way it goes sometimes. Now, Romain Grosjean to go. This is interesting. While Pierre Gasly may have saved his bacon at Silverstone, and that's how it looked like, Romain Grosjean is looking more and more likely to be slaughtered at the end of the season. I did not want to call him be the slaughtered pig. One media report mentioned that after the race, Gunther Steiner called team owner Gene Haas and asked for his seal of approval to make changes in the driver lineup. Some reports are even suggesting, which has now been debunked by Steiner, that Grosjean may not make it to Germany. Looks like Toto may be making some orchestral maneuvers in the dark to get Esteban Ocon back in Formula One, and Haas F1 may be a much better seat than sipping tea with Claire Williams. What do you make of the Grosjean situation? Do you think he deserves another season in Formula One?
No, he should be in a bank counting money as a teller. Let's just call for Fernando and get this over with.
But I have to say, Clark, if Gunther Steiner thinks he has an issue with Grosjean, wait till we see Ocon battling with K-Mag. Both are very feisty, and I expect more civil war, which is par for the course when we get two tigers in one cage. And just a little background, Kevin Magnussen was teammate to Felipe Nasser in British F3. Felipe won the championship based on a very strong first half. K-Mag had an equally strong second half and came close to, winning the championship himself. But according to team owner Trevor Carlin, there was no love lost between the two. He used different words, but I'm just trying to be PC while quoting somebody else. What say you?
I say fire everybody, start from scratch. You got nothing to lose.
And bring in Nando?
Bring in Nando El machismo hombre de España.
Yeah, I saw a news item saying that it could have been a slow news day, that Alonso might show up in NASCAR. Oh, wouldn't that be fun?
I'm telling you, that's the next pinnacle of motorsports.
Oh, yes. Okay, now we have Dr. Marco's prescription on Vettel. Speaking to German magazine Auto Bild, Dr. Marco said, and I quote, "You make mistakes when you are no longer sure of yourself. At Red Bull, he hardly made any mistakes." End of quote. So I guess running into the back of a Red Bull driver while driving a Toro Rosso does not count as a mistake. His parting shot was not very encouraging for the four-time world champion, and I quote again, Sebastian would have to be in a different environment. In other words, change the team, but I see no way for 2020. End of quote. Do you think we will see Sebastian in Formula Uno next year?
Nope, he's out of there.
No, I think we'll see him. He's quite a racer, and I expect him to be with Ferrari, unless from nowhere Charles Leclerc can. If Charles Leclerc can do a Danny Ricciardo on him and go 3-0 against him, then I think dishes will be totally done for him. But I see some pulse and life in Sebastian Vettel's Formula One career, but I just cannot see him winning a championship. Or this year is not going to happen, or even next year. And by that time, Leclerc will be fully up to speed and hopefully in tune with the Ferrari way of doing things, and maybe even more of a headache than he is right now.
I totally agree, but I still think Vettel is going to retire, and he'll be texting Pedro de la Rosa.
So if he retires at the end of this season, who do you think will replace him at Ferrari?
Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, there is talk of that, but I will be surprised. Well, the way Mick Schumacher's career is going in Formula 2, I don't think they will put him in Ferrari next year.
No way.
And the way things are going for Antonio Giovinazzi, I don't think they will put him in a Ferrari next year. The name that has come up is Valtteri Bottas' name, and he may be a good... if you're a good number two, you'll be a good number two anywhere.
Number twos are always good.
Yeah, and they are like FDA approved, That's what they will be. So he may not be a bad guy. But I would like to see somebody like Esteban Ocon at Ferrari. That will be very interesting. Because, we want cage rattling two young drivers and duking it out. That will be very interesting. Now, sir, we come to Advanced Australia F1. Melbourne will stay on the calendar till 2025. Good news, as the season opener is a favorite for all locals, TV audience, drivers and team personnel. And I think it will remain as the season opener throughout the course of this contract. Do you like this? Remember the season used to end in Australia?
Yeah.
Do you prefer the Australian season opener or final race?
You want to know the truth?
See.
I really don't care.
Because you're such a NASCAR fan now?
Exactly.
There you go. Now, this was interesting that there is now talk of ground effect cars coming back in 2021, and Jean Todt wants to rethink refueling. Oh, what's your take on refueling?
Love refueling. Fire. It's fire. I'm on fire.
Well, it was I don't think Felipe Massa is a big fan of refueling, especially during night races.
Yeah, but what about Ricky Bobby?
Well, I'll have to check with him. I'll have to send him a text message, see what he has to say.
Thank you. Bravo, prego.
Sir, now we come to your favorite topic, your question. What's your prediction for Grosser Preis von Deutschland, German Grand Prix?
My prediction? Charles Leclerc wins.
What about Lewis Hamilton?
Lewis Hamilton? Who is Lewis Hamilton?
He's the driver who has, 3 more championships than you know who.
You mean the luckiest man in the world?
Yes.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton, Lou Gehrig. I know these people. Nothing but troublemakers.
Yeah, let's see what Max Verstappen can do. This is not the track that it used to be, with those long straights, front and back straight. That was so beautiful. This was one of apart from the Italian Grand Prix, when I was living in California and watching these, back in the day, races at 5 in the morning, watching those cars go on the long straight, front and back, especially the in-car camera, that was really, really something I used to look forward all season long. But now we have this. The track has been Tilke-ized, so it's not much of a track anymore, but still a Formula One race. You think Max can do it there?
No.
And man, I saw a news item today. I have not read the whole detail. There is the demand for tickets for the Dutch Grand Prix is far, far more than what they can sell or accommodate at the track. Isn't that good news?
That's great news.
And I'm sure same will be the case for the Da Nang Grand Prix. Since you like pho so much, will you go to the Vietnamese Grand Prix?
The what?
The Vietnamese Grand Prix.
I don't go to any Grand Prix.
That will be right up your alley, you know.
No.
Cool. Okay, any thoughts on their upcoming race, or shall we take a break and come back with Better Sports Mondial?
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back after this brief message.
Hi, I'm Mark Surer, and I say hello to F1 Weekly.
Welcome back to F1weekly.com. Clark Rogers here, your host. And now, as we spin the globe and go around the world with Motorsports Mondial and the king, the guru himself, Nasser Hamid.
Yes, sir. We will start from the Netherlands, Assen, which is world famous as a MotoGP track. The DTM cars were racing there. Winners were Marco Wittmann for BMW in race 1 and Mike Rockenfeller in race 2 for Audi. Now, you know this series for ladies, Formula W. They were also in action as support race to the DTM at Assen. And a lady from Finlandia, Emma Kimiläinen, she was the winner, so good for her. The season finale is at Brands Hatch, and championship battle is basically between Jamie Chadwick of UK, and we interviewed this lady some years ago, and Dutch race driver Bijtske Visser. Bijtske had a very impressive karting career, and not too long ago was part of Red Bull Junior program. Now we come to your second favorite series after NASCAR, IndyCars in Corn Country. Win number 4 of the season for Penske pilot Joseph Newgarden. His teammate and Indy 500 winner Simon Pagenaud, as they call him here, started from pole. Now, if I remember correctly, and you are quite the authority on NASCAR now, so you can confirm this, I believe this track was designed by one of your favorite NASCAR drivers, Rusty Wallace.
Boogity, boogity, boogity.
Okay, sir. Now we come to Das History of German Grand Prix drivers, pre- and post-war. Deutschland über alles has a very rich history of Uber domination in Grand Prix racing, both pre- and post-World War, just as Fernando Alonso. In pre-war racing era, names like Mercedes, Auto Union, Hermann Lang, Rudolf Caracciola, and Bernd Rosemeyer are synonymous with success. Today we will look at some German drivers in the Formula One era up until the arrival of the Red Baron. Teutonic talent was tiny in racing, with one exception, and that was Wolfgang von Trips. Von Trips was a German count and was the first driver from his country to win a Formula One race, and that was the 1961 Dutch Grand Prix. This was the first race in F1 history up until that point, where all the starters finished the race without any car making a pit stop. Von Trips would also take victory in the British Grand Prix that year and was on his way to becoming the first German world champion in the season finale at Monza. Day of triumph turned into day of tragedy. His car collided with the car of a young Scottish driver by the name of Jim Clark and went into the crowd, killing the driver and 14 spectators, including several kids. Von Trips' Ferrari teammate, Phil Hill from Santa Monica, California, went on to win the race and the championship, and to this day, Phil Hill remains the only American-born Formula One world champion. The fatherland had to wait 14 years before another German victory in Grand Prix racing, and sadly this was also in tragic circumstances. A race I remember very well. The driver was Jochen Mass, and the race was the 1975 Spanish Grand Prix at the Montjuic Park street circuit in Barcelona. This race was red flagged before half distance following a crash of another German driver who was Rolf Stommelin was the name. Now this driver survived the accident, but I think 4 or 5 people were killed who were standing by the side of the track. And unfortunately, Rolf Stommelin himself, who came from Cologne area, he was killed later in a sports car race at Riverside in Southern California. Only half points are awarded as the race was stopped early, but it allowed Italian Lella Lombardi to become the first and only female to score a point in Formula One racing. Actually, half a point from her sixth place. And that was they used to give points up until sixth position in those days. This Grand Prix victory was Jochen Mass's first and only F1 victory, but his name will forever be linked to another tragedy in Formula One. 7 years later, it was his March that was hit by Gilles Villeneuve's Ferrari at Zolder during qualifying for the 1982 Belgian Grand Prix. Now we come to Hans-Joachim Stuck. His father was from Austria. He was also a Grand Prix driver up until another Austrian-born person issued Achtung Baby orders all across Europe in 1939. Hans-Joachim Stuck drove for Bernie Ecclestone's Brabham team and back-to-back third-place finishes in Germany and Austria. I believe it was 1977 were the highlight of his F1 career. In life after F1, Stuck became very popular and successful in American sports car racing. I was reading his interview, and he proudly states in that when he raced for the first time in the Nürburgring 24-hour race, he was not even wearing seat belts. Can you believe that, how motor racing was some years ago? Now we come to Stefan Bellof. This was a real racing talent from the German town of Gießen. Martin Brundle was his teammate at Tyrrell and called him fast and crazy, an opinion shared by many fellow drivers who raced with and against him. He was on the Gilles Villeneuve and Max Verstappen program, flat out all the time. Sadly, in 1985 at Eau Rouge, this cost him his life after he collided with Jackie Ickx in a sports car race. Like Senna in the 1984 Monaco Grand Prix in the rain, Bellof also put in a tremendous performance that served notice of his talent. Now we come to Christian Danner. He is from Munich, and according to him, translation of his name is Christmas dinner. He came into Formula One like Gerhard Berger through tin tops, having raced in Renault 5 Cup. Do you remember the Renault 5 Cup, how popular it used to be in Europe in the 70s and 80s?
It was exciting and wonderful, and I loved every minute of it.
Yes, what I remember about this series is when I was at Monza in 1982, they had a Renault race from Renault 5, and these cars were not making a lot of noise like the Alfa Romeo Alfa suits, but the flame coming out from the back, because these were turbo cars, that was very impressive, I have to say. Danner made 36 Grand Prix starts for 4 different teams: Zakspeed, Osella, Arrows, and Real. His best finish was 4th in 1991 in the dry heat of Phoenix, Arizona. In life after F1, he raced in DTM and also did some IndyCar races here in the US. These days, he is a commentator for RTL Network in Germany, and I had a nice chat with him at Austin last year, and hopefully I'll catch up with him in the near future at a Formula One track. Hopefully soon. Hopefully this year. Now we come to Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Like Nick Heidfeld, Heinz-Harald Frentzen is also from Mönchengladbach. He is best remembered as teammate to Michael Schumacher when they were racing for Mercedes in sports car program run by Peter Sauber. And when Michael Schumacher made it to Formula One, it was widely reported in racing media that Frentzen was faster than Schumacher in sports car racing. Frentzen replaced outgoing world champion Damon Hill, and driving the best car on the grid was expected to lead the charge for the championship. But teammate Jacques Villeneuve ate his fish and chips and kidney pudding at Williams in the year BC, meaning before Claire. The record shows he took the blow but did win 3 F1 races in his career and was second in the 1997 championship, a long way behind Jacques Villeneuve. And now we come to Nick Heidfeld. He was the golden child, or should I say the silver child of Mercedes and Norbert Hogg, and was on his way to McLaren after the 2001 season. Sadly for him, before the season started, Peter Sauber allowed a young driver who had only done 23 races in Formula Renault to test for his team and hired him to be his second driver. This quiet storm was none other than the immensely talented Kimi Matthias Raikkonen. Quick Nick was on the podium 13 times and despite a pole position at the Nürburgring never won an F1 race. In life after F1, he has been successful in Formula 1. And so these are some of the drivers. I obviously have not covered Ralph and Michael because they are, recent history. So there you have a little Das history of Deutschen drivers.
Thank you, Naz. Keep up the good work. And now the bonus. Okay, and now here's a terrific conversation with a Switzerland driver, or a Swiss driver, you might want to say, that drove in Formula One for a number of years. And this young man's name is Mark Schurer.
Okay, folks, I'm here with the racing champion from Switzerland, Mr. Mark Schurer. Mark, great to meet you. How are you today, sir?
I'm very well.
And tell us a little bit about your first memory of motor racing. What got you interested, and how old were you when you decided to become a professional racing driver?
Well, it's all started with karting. I was a mechanic for a friend and prepared his kart, and sometimes he let me run in the engines, and finally he found out that I was faster than him, so he let me drive for one race, and I did well, and so we changed, and he was the mechanic.
Now, when things started heating up and you were doing very well, and was family interested in supporting your racing adventure?
Not at all. That was my problem. That's why I started very late. I was already 18 when I started motor racing. These days it's impossible, now all have to start very young, but in my time it was not so unusual.
Was your family supportive of your career?
Not at all. I mean, they were interested, of course, when I did well. They were proud, but I had no support, nothing. Actually, it was rather the opposite, because I wanted to be an engineer and I stopped studying because I wanted to go racing, and they were very upset with me.
Okay, now, how important was the role played by Mr. Jochen Nierpasch in your racing career?
Well, this was the big change to become a professional driver. I was a Formula 3 driver, and I got a deal as a Formula 3 driver, working as well as a mechanic, and instead getting paid, I was allowed to do some races, and I did very well, so they let me do the whole season. And that's when Jochen Nierpasch called me and invited me for the junior team.
Great. Now, he's been involved in racing for a long time. Are you still in touch with him?
Yes, I am. Sometimes I meet him. We have sometimes some historic discussion about the M1, the fantastic road car from BMW, which actually he was his baby. And so we meet again with Mille Miglia, some events with old cars, with historic cars.
Okay, great. Now, you won the 1979 European F2 Championship by 2 points in 2 victories. How do you remember Keke Rosberg and Bobby Rahal, who is such a big name here from that season?
Keke was unbelievable good driver. Keke was very, very good in the wet. I remember that very well. And Bobby came over from the States and did very well, and he crashed once, I think in Po, into my back and bent my suspension. I still finished the race, but I didn't win it because of him. So I have some bad memories, but he's a great person. I mean, I met him many times since.
Now, you also had a very strong season in European F2 in '78. What were the high points of these 2 seasons, apart from winning the championship, of course?
It was fantastic. It was the first time, to be in a British team. For me, it was learning the language, of course, being in England and driving for March, and how professional they were working, because they won so many championships at March. But of course, there was an order. There was in 1978 there was Bruno Giacomelli, meant to be the champion, and they said, okay, take it easy, Mark, next year is your year, so it was like a little bit of a team order, not a strict one, but they reminded you what's it all about.
And talking of March being so professional, how professional was Mr. Max Mosley?
He left already March at this time. Yes, I think he was already working for FIA, did he? No, for Foca.
Bernie,
For
yes,
Foca. Bernie, with Bernie, yes, he was.
Okay, talking of English teams and different teams, Gunther Schmidt of ATS, was he the craziest team owner you ever raced for? Any stories you can share with us?
Yeah, he was an emotional one. He was very emotional. And when we were in England, for example, testing, and we had to call him because it was wet in Silverstone, and he says, "Here, the weather is beautiful in Germany. I want a team in Germany." He didn't like to have no control of things, But sometimes I remember Joe Ramirez said once, "I think I could hear the rain pouring down behind him when he said it's beautiful weather in Germany." But the most crazy thing was when Gustav Brunner, our designer, he made a new front wing. And this front wing looked a bit different, and he didn't like it. And I said, "What is this?" As Gustav Brunner made this front wing, he tried it in the wind tunnel, it works well. "I don't want this wing on my car." They said, "Yeah, but it's good." "No, you don't put it on the car." And then he jumped on it and destroyed it. So we could not use it.
He was something. Now, when you were winning in Junior Series and moving towards F1, did you have a manager or did you do your own deals?
I did my own deal. I think this is something I regret now. But I didn't find a good manager, and as Jochen Erbasch was always in the background, I always could ask him. But yes, I think it was a mistake, because selling yourself is very difficult for a driver, and not many could do that. I think the only one I remember we did very well was Gerhard Berger. And all the other drivers, they have manager, because somebody has to go and tell the teams, "Yeah, did you see this lap time?" And get some attention from the other teams. And I did a good job, and I stayed very long in Formula One. For if somebody drives the back market cars, then normally they disappeared after 2 or 3 years. I didn't, so I'm very proud of that, but it could have been better.
I agree with you because you need to have somebody going and talking on your behalf to explore different situations. I always found interesting when Sebastian Vettel says, "I don't need a manager because I can drive myself to the track." What do you say on that?
Sebastian Vettel was very fortunate, because when he was in Formula Junior, he already had Red Bull. So it was Helmut Marko taking care of him. He had a manager, And when you're 4 times world champion, of course, it's easy because people come to you.
Yeah.
So he's not the right person to talk about that, because his career, first it was his father taking care of him when he was karting. And then when he was in Formula BMW, already Red Bull supported him, so he had Red Bull management.
Yeah, good. Okay, is it easier for talented young driver to get into F1 these days? Now we have Red Bull and driver development program, or was it easier in your days?
I think it's easier now because there are really programs. You see Renault is doing a lot, for example. Mercedes has some young drivers. I think now if you're exceptional, somebody will take care of you. The problem is where to start. Now, they already start in karting, as I understand, if it's McLaren or Red Bull. And sometimes I think these guys are too young. You don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. But of course, this is another problem. But there is a possibility now these days, if you're exceptional, to get support.
Okay, I saw you race at Monza in 1982, my first Grand Prix ever, when racing cars sounded like real racing cars. Are you a fan of too much technology and not much noise that we have these days?
I like the idea that Formula One is some way ahead of road cars. And when you're a manufacturer and you're planning your technique is all about hybrid and electro and for the future and fuel saving, then you should have a Formula One which is exactly the same way, because the development in Formula One is unbelievable. Just think about how quick a Formula One car can recharge the battery. By braking for a few seconds and the battery is nearly full again. It's unbelievable. So the technology goes so much faster when Formula One is involved. So that's the good part. What I don't like is the sound.
You missed that, huh?
Yeah, we lost the sound, and that's very bad. And I'm sure there are ways to get it back, not by making sound artificial, but by the real sound. Is this MGUH with the heat is eating the sound from the turbo, and I'm sure there would be another way doing that.
Yeah, I look forward to that day. Okay, Bernie is gone and American Chase is on. Your thoughts on F1 under new management? Do you like what you see so far?
Yes, we got a lot more freedom. Before it was so strict that Bernie, I cannot say Bernie hated television, but he made life difficult. We were very restricted what we were allowed to do and what not. And since the American have the control, we are have much more freedom. We can work much better. So they understand how important media is, and I think this is the biggest step so far. Other things will come.
Great. Max Verstappen is talk of the town these days. What was your opinion when Red Bull placed him in F1 after only 1 year of single-seater racing? I remember talking to him a few days before the announcement, and I was thinking even GP2 would be too much of a step for him, and then came the F1 announcement.
It was a very brave move. But on the other hand, I talked to Franz Toast about it, and he says, I prefer to get the driver before he is spoiled. Because if he is in GP2 and he gets the wrong advice, this driver could be spoiled and start having a driving style which is not perfect for Formula One. And so Franz Toast from Toro Rosso said, I'd like to have him and teach him how to drive a Formula One car. He's so young, he will adapt perfectly and he will be the best driver ever, and I think he's right.
You are now a commentator for Sky Sport in Switzerland. I want to get your thoughts on two drivers, Ayrton Senna da Silva and Lewis Hamilton.
They are completely different. I raced against Ayrton Senna. He was very special, very emotional. Lewis Hamilton is much more cool. He is really cool, calculating, and I have to say, at the moment, of course, he's the greatest driver. We don't need to discuss that. He is a personality. You like him or not, but he is a personality, which is very good for Formula One, because he is brave enough to say sometimes things which others are not allowed to say. But of course, he's Lewis Hamilton. He can do that. So he is very good for the sport. Ayrton Senna was unbelievable in his time. He was very thoughtful, but in the car a complete different person. He was a beast in the car, and so you cannot compare these drivers.
Yeah, you have to be very brave to bring Justin Bieber to the Monaco Grand Prix podium, like Lewis did.
Exactly. These are things. I mean, he has the modern approach, to mix all these famous people in Formula One. So thanks to him, Formula One, I think it helped a lot also in the United States to accept Formula One. This is something which was a bit exotic in the States so far, and I think Lewis helped Formula One a lot by having these contacts.
Absolutely. Now, you have raced in places like Enna, Pergusa, Po. I was in Po last May. Fantastic place. You've raced in Rio. What city you enjoyed most visiting, and what are some of your favorite tracks?
I remember Long Beach as a fantastic place to race. Then, of course, Monaco is something special. I mean, Monaco is not a race. Monaco is driving. Is like driving bobsleigh. Bobsleigh. How do you call? Yeah. Because you're by yourself in a channel.
Yeah.
That's how it feels driving in Monaco. And I also remember one track which I loved a lot is Brands Hatch in England. Brands Hatch goes up and down, and the Nordschleife is the greatest track ever. But you cannot have that for Formula One cars, of course. But a little bit in this direction we should have, so you feel, as a driver, the speed more.
Okay, now you're a commentator, you meet a lot of drivers. I want to ask you a question. You know who Matt Bishop is, right, obviously?
Yes.
Okay, I once asked him, in terms of dealing with drivers, who are the good guys and who are the buttheads when it comes to, dealing with them and getting their time. Based on your experience, can you drop some names, both good guys and buttheads, please?
Good guys. Jenson Button is, for me, is a fantastic guy. He won the championship, because normally you can say good guys will never be champion. Because you need to be mean in some ways to be champion. I remember very well Mario Andretti. He was always a gentleman, very fast, a gentleman, a fantastic fighter, but always fair. From the later ones, I would say Davy Coulthard was a gentleman driver, but a very fast driver.
And the buttheads. Let me try to make it easier for you. According to Matt Bishop, the greatest butthead was, is, and ever will be Eddie Irvine. Do you agree on that?
Eddie Irvine was very special. But it's not fair from me to judge somebody, because always, if I would have been world champion, I probably could have say, this guy will never make it, or this guy is no good, or this guy is unfair. But it's not fair from me, being, in fact, a middle, somewhere in the middle class Formula One driver, to judge.
No, I was talking more in terms of, when you try to do an interview, how they deal with you in terms of that approach.
I'm sorry, but I can't.
You're a gentleman, so you don't want to take names. I understand. Okay, next question. We're running short on time, so I have a very important question. Two questions, please. Motor racing is coming back to Switzerland in the form of Formula E. What are the chances of real thing coming back to Bremgarten or a street race around Lake Geneva, which I think would be fantastic?
I have very little hope. It is just because the Greens can have nothing against Formula E. And Zurich is controlled by the Greens, they're really under control. But this is the moment they cannot say no, because it's a green formula with Formula E. And I think otherwise, you always have people against you. We try to build a track, and this would be the first step in Switzerland, just a little track. We have one which is about 1 mile long, that's all. And we need a track. But even that, if private investor wants to do it, you will always have opposition. Switzerland is unfortunately too small, so it will not be more than that in Formula E.
Okay, now a prediction from you. What will we see first? 5th championship for Lewis Hamilton or 3rd for Fernando Alonso?
Rather the 5th of Lewis Hamilton. He deserves it, yeah.
Thank you, Sean.
Mark, thanks for joining F1weekly.com.
And now the wrap up.
And Nass, any predictions?
Yes, sir. I think there will be a silver lining at the start-finish line at the end of the German Grand Prix. That's my prediction. But I'm hoping there is rain. I want some cage rattling, I want to see Max get another win. And it's time to see some new faces on the podium. That's what I say.
Oh, come on, Nass. Don't you like it when Lewis Hamilton just controls the whole thing, wins from start to finish, and we just watch the mid-pack have fun?
I love it, but I love it when anybody else does it too. It's interesting, I remember thinking the other day, Clark, I think it was the 1988 Italian Grand Prix, and Phil Hill was one of the guest commentators, and he made a comment which I remembered very well, and he said, it's very hard to believe that in this day and age of such competition, we can have one team have such a big advantage. And that's what it's so surprising, you know. I mean, look at the run of success Michael Schumacher and Ferrari had, and now, I mean, 2-3 years ago, we knew the grid position before the qualifying. We knew. Now it's getting mix and match and push and shove. But you know, it's like, you know, as they say, no matter how high the cat you drop, the cat will always land on its feet. So here, whether it's rain, argy-bargy, penalties, whatever, it's Lewis Hamilton is going to come out as the winner.
Even if he doesn't win, like in Canada. It's brilliant!
Yeah, he is winning even when he's beaten. I mean, how lucky can you get, Mr. Rogers?
The luckiest man in the world.
That's Lewis Hamilton for you. But you know what I'm really interested in, and I'm not going to lose or gain any sleep one way or the other. He is so close to matching and beating Michael Schumacher's Grand Prix win records that I'm old school. When Jackie Stewart got 27 wins, I never thought anybody will beat that. But, you know, times have changed and we have a lot more races. And I have never considered number of runs as being the only factor how to rating a driver. I think all these great drivers, be it Senna, be it Schumacher, Alonso, people will remember them as great drivers, not for their number of wins or championships, but the tenacity and the talent and the performance they put on the track.
And don't forget, the luck.
Well, you have to have luck. There is no question about it, you know. I mean, just look at it this way, okay? Had Michael not had that engine failure at Suzuka, he would be what now? 8-time world champion? And just look at that flame out Lewis had in Malaysia and the kitty litter in China in 2007. I mean, he could be sitting on 7 championships already. So luck counts. But you know what they say, you make your own luck.
Bravo.
You know, I have an advertising idea because, you know, I'm living and learning, you know. I've learned something from William's story and I thought maybe you can use this. You know what that is?
No.
I think you should start advertising F1 Weekly saying that we have 100,000 listeners, just 990,000 have not downloaded yet.
Keep up the good work, Nas. We're all very proud of you. Thanks for the great interview. I want to thank everybody who listens. Good night.
Bye-bye.